What's up, guys? Today I'm going to teach you how to make your country vocals go from sounding like to sounding like you came right out the Carolinas. Just like your boy. Take a listen.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I asked my cigarette.
All right, guys, so I got this session pulled up for a little country pop kind of vibe song that I've been working on. And if you follow along throughout this video, you'll be able to get your vocals sounding just like this, or maybe better. Who knows?
But I keep on driving down this road. Life's been tangled, but I stay strong.
All right, guys, you can't hear the whole thing. The song's, well, I don't know. Maybe it'll be out by the time. It is probably my next release, so maybe it'll be out by the time this video comes out. However, I can't let you hear the whole thing, man. Come on. But that being said, let's go ahead and solo out this lead verse vocal so you can kind of hear what's going on here. Let's check it out.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer.
And I'll play a drive for you, bro. Even the auto-tune I'm going to take off just so you guys can hear the difference because I'm not a world-class singer.
It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I asked my cigarette and burned the Corvette on my floor. I hide it from my family, but they smell it on my clothes. And I can't.
So as you can see, very big difference. Let's go ahead and start from the top and make sure you guys stay for the whole video because I'm also going to teach you how to do the dubs that I do, and I'm even going to give you an overview of my chorus vocals. And if you stay to the very end, I might even give you a little sneak peek of my tried and true 3 plugin mastering chain that I actually have on this song right now. Let's go ahead and start with this lead vocal. First thing in my plugin, which is going to be the first thing in every plugin, is my auto-tune chain. So right here, I don't have it doing anything too heavy because it's like, you know, I don't want it to be that noticeable on a song like this. So pretty much I pulled it up. You just get your key right. Boom, boom. I always use low male normally, but you can adjust this. If you have a really high voice, you could use soprano. If you kind of have a mid-tier voice, you could use alto tenor. I normally use low male, but that's just me. I'm a male, so. But I don't see gender. Let's be clear about that. I'm offended about this just as much. If you're unsure, just use low male or alto tenor. Or if you're singing like full head voice, super high, just use soprano. My retune speed, I have at 20. Humanize, I have at 25. Let's hear the before and after.
It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I asked my cigarette and burned the Corvette on my floor. I hide it from my family, but they smell.
So as you'd expect, it's just cleaning up the vocal. Next up, we have my first EQ. Now, I'm using a Shure SM7B, and it has just like a few frequency points that I don't always love, so I just go ahead and subtract those, so you can go ahead and copy my settings here. Now, if you don't have a SM7B, or if I'm using like one of my condenser microphones, I normally don't have this first EQ. Now, any microphone might have frequencies that you don't love, so you could always do an initial EQ like this, and just pull through some of those frequencies. I'll show you guys some of the ones that I pulled down.
1 in Miami, down Explorer.
Some of this real boxiness.
Rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road.
Some of these whistly, harsh frequencies. I just scan through like this. Boop, 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 boop. Once I find a low frequency I don't like, just pull it down just a little bit. I have it pulled down to about 35, all the frequencies I don't love.
I asked my cigarette and burned the Corvette on my floor. I hide it from my...
So just scan through, find a frequency you don't like, and go ahead and pull it down just a little bit. This is just an initial EQ, guys. We're not doing too much here. And then I've cut off the super high end because it's not really audible anyways. And this is just the built-in Logic channel EQ. I've just been using it Logic for so long that I have this EQ on all of my templates. But any EQ is going to have a very similar layout just like this, and you can go ahead and pull down the frequencies and whatever your preferred plugin is. Next up, I have a gate. All this is going to do is cut out the silent part so that you're not hearing the noise floor or any hissing or background noise that might have been picked up by your mic while recording. So you probably won't hear much of a difference. If I pull this out, so instead of hearing all this noise, you won't. Yeah. Very simple. This is my preferred gate to use. It's the Wave C1 gate. Go ahead and copy those settings. All I do is go down here, I hit classic voiceover gate, and then I just tweak these settings a little bit. Next up is your de-esser. Just going to cut out some of the S's, as the name says. I pull it up, I hit male S. Again, guys, I don't see gender. But if you do, feel free to click male or female S as applicable. And then right now I have my threshold at 50. What I do is I turn this on. So I actually think maybe I have this a little bit low. All you're going to do is play the vocal with the gate on, and we're going to see this blue. And we're going to see this blue bar right here moving up and down. I normally just start with it at the top, pull down until I'm just cutting off like maybe 10% of that bar. Depending on the vocal, or if I just feel like I have a lot of S's, I'll go ahead and pull it down a little bit more. This is one of the songs that I probably did the heaviest de-essing on. So I'm going to play it with it off and on over this hand-me-down Explorer, and you can kind of hear what it's doing. This is a pretty subtle plugin for your overall sound, but it is going to make it sound a little bit smoother come the final mix.
Hand-me-down Explorer.
Explore now with it on.
Hand-me-down Explorer. It rained.
Just bringing down the volume on that Sibilance so that it doesn't stand out too much and pull away from the song. Next up is going to be another channel EQ. This is going to be the one doing all the heavy lifting. As you can see, I've cut out a lot of the lows, a lot of these frequencies. So I have a high pass filter. I have a shelf right here, pulling out a lot of that low end, and then I've pulled down some of the frequencies that I don't love. As a standard, this is going to be a great starting point, and then feel free to play your vocal, pull these up, scan through for a frequency that you don't like for your specific voice or for the artist that you're recording specific voice, and then pull that back down. And then I've just brought up this shelf on the high end just to give a little bit more air. I don't do a lot of additive EQ, which is when you're pushing up frequencies, but every now and then, depending on the song, especially with this Shure SM7B, it tends to be a muddier microphone. I do sometimes push up the highs just a little bit. Don't get too crazy. And again, you can apply these shapes and these settings to any EQ. Let's hear what this EQ is doing. Start with it off, and then I'll go ahead and turn it on.
6 a.m. Route 1 in my hand-me-down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor.
So we're cutting out a lot of those MIDI frequencies, making it just a little bit brighter with that shelf. Next plugin in our chain is going to be our comp. This is going to be our first compressor, making the low volume and the high volume parts sound a lot more similar. So this is just the first compressor, but let's go ahead and hear what it's doing.
6 a.m. Route 1 in my hand-me-down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor. I hide it from my family, but they smell it on.
And do keep in mind, I did run this through a digital preamp on my Apollo, so it already had a little bit of compression before I even got into Logic. If you aren't using any sort of preamp, which I didn't for a long time, don't worry. You can copy all the same settings without the preamp. Don't stress it. But if you can use a preamp, it does help your plugins have to do a little bit less work. So let's hear it with it off.
6 a.m. Route 1 in my hand-me-down Explorer.
You can hear the, in my hand-me-down Explorer, in my hand-me-down, right? As I'm doing these louder parts, they're poking out a little bit more. Now as I add the compressor, it's going to sound a little bit smoother.
6 a.m. Route 1 in my hand-me-down Explorer.
Much smoother. Cool. So go ahead and copy these settings. Archon, one of my favorite compressors of all time. Use it on almost every song. Just like I do with this next plugin, which is another compressor, the CLA2A. This is actually the compression that I have running just a little bit on my digital preamp through my Apollo. This one's really doing the heavy compression for us in the mix. So copy these settings. I literally just touch these two knobs. Let's hear the before and after.
6 a.m. Route 1 in my hand-me-down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor.
Okay, now let's do a before and after with neither of these compressors, and then with both of them, and then you'll see how having the two combined is making a much bigger difference than you might think right now. So this is without using either of those two compressors.
6 a.m. Route 1 in my hand-me-down Explorer. It rained a bit last.
Volume is a little all over the place. And that's even with the preamp compressor that I have. Now let's turn them on halfway through so you can really hear what they're doing.
6 a.m. Route 1 in my hand-me-down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road.
Much tighter vocal. Guys, compression is one of the most important things that you can do to your vocals to make it sound professional. So do not sleep on these plugins. If you don't have either of them, at least invest in the CLA2A because it's my favorite compressor of all time, hands down. I use it on every single song. Next compressor we have is by Soundtoys. So all this is going to do is, I guess, decapitate the vocal, you could say. It's easier for me to just show you so you can listen. But it's kind of going to de-harsh the vocal in a bit of a way. But I'm not doing that much with it, but Let's go ahead and I'll show you.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night.
So you can copy these settings. I have it on the E style, and I have the tone just a little bit turned towards the dark side of the knob. And then I've actually am using the drive setting on this because I do like how the drive sounds on this plugin. So I have that just under 1. So let's see what it's doing. Start with it off, and then I'll turn it on for you.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor.
Pretty subtle, but I do love the little bit of extra texture and smoothness that I guess I would say that this plugin gives me. Next up, we have our third and final compressor, RVox. This is a god tier plugin. Everybody that uses RVox knows just how powerful it is. And it's so simple to use. They also have a built-in noise gate. So say you didn't have this earlier gate, the C1 waves compressor, you can use this gate. I use a little bit of this gate anyways, just to catch stuff that may have gone through, or maybe the volume got brought up from another compressor. This compressor not only compresses, but it like really saturates the vocals. So absolutely one of my favorite plugins to use. I know I'm saying that a lot, but I use a lot of the same plugins over and over again because they sound great. Let's hear what this one's doing.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor. I hide it from my family, but they smell it on my...
Next up, we have the S1 Imager, also by Waves. This one's just going to give it a little bit of width. It's pretty subtle, but let me show you guys what I'm working with.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road.
Just helps to, I guess, fatten up, widen up that vocal just a little bit. Which brings us into our doubler. I'm using the Doubler 2, one of my favorite plugins of all time. I have the gain at 12.5 and 12.8. Pan all the ways on 45 each. Everything else, I believe, is exactly how it comes out of the box. This one's essentially adding 2 extra vocals that are slightly delayed to really fatten up the voice.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor.
All right, that brings us to our delay. Actually, before I do the delay, let's go ahead and look at these buses. The first one I have on this bus is Space Designer, Villa Bathroom. Peep these settings, go ahead and copy them. Let me show you guys what this reverb is doing.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night.
So when I do a quick pause, you'll be able to kind of hear what it's doing more so.
It's nice, so I've been sliding.
Just makes it feel like it's actually sitting in a room. And I'll crank it up so you can see what it's doing on an extreme level.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last...
And I have this pulled down to about -2. That brings us to our second reverb, which is the Manny Mariquin reverb. I have it on space, large, and then you could check out all these other settings. Time is 100%. Pre-delay is 176. So I'll link a reverb calculator where if you want this to be synced perfectly with your BPM, as far as this number, you can use this calculator to say, oh, I want like an 1/8 pre-delay, and it'll tell you how many milliseconds that is for your specific BPM. But if you don't want to do all that, then just move it to where it sounds good. I've done that before too. And then before that reverb, I'm just cutting out some of the low ends. On these bigger reverbs, if you don't cut out that low end, it can just get a little bit muddier, a little bit harder to actually hear the lead vocal. So I always just do a little high pass filter. So let's start with it off, and then I'll turn it on, and you guys can hear what it's doing.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor.
So now it's putting us in a bigger space. And you can get a similar effect with a lot of reverbs. Lately, I've been using the Valhalla verb a lot. After that, I just added this delay. I use H delay. So make sure your BPM's correct. If your host is set right and you click host, it should auto sync. If you haven't done that, then you can click BPM, double click over here on the number. Sometimes it takes a couple clicks to come up, and then type in your correct BPM. Then I have it on a quarter. I have the high pass turned up a bit, and the dry wet I have at 8 out of 100, feedback 5. What's up, guys? This is Future Editor Beck. That's why you don't see me in the corner. But I realized that I forgot to show you guys my third bus, which is right down here. And my third bus is my parallel compression bus. So what this one's going to do is just really crispy up and bring that vocal to the front. All I do is I grab an EQ, cut out some of the low end, and then I grab this 1176 compressor, and you go ahead and copy these settings. And then all I do is drag that up to about 33. Let me show you guys what that's doing.
6 a.m. Route 1 in Miami down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor. I hide it from my family, but they smell it on.
So as you can see, I dragged it up just so you guys could hear what it's doing, but I would never really use it that high. But yeah, I like to let this sit normally around the negative 30 range. And yeah, that's it. That's the parallel compression bus. Now, let me show you what I did for my dubs. Pretty much everything is the same up until you get to this micro shift, okay? Also, I turned the volume down to negative 5.2, and I'm panning these dubs just very slight, anywhere from like -1 to -10, left or right. Makes it a little bit more interesting in the headphones, I personally think. It's so subtle, probably nobody would notice, so I guess that's optional. And then I'm using this micro shift by Soundtoys. Pretty much it is doing what a sample delay does. So if you don't have this plugin and you're in Logic, you can just use this sample delay. Drag one of these up to like 300, and that's going to give you a similar effect. It's just that this micro shift plugin by Soundtoys is a bit more powerful. So I'll leave all the other ones on other than these two new plugins.
In Miami down Explorer.
And now I turn micro shift on.
In Miami down Explorer.
Just fattens it up. Almost like what the doubler is doing, but in a different way, different algorithm. I don't know exactly how it works, but I know it sounds sick. The next plugin we have is the Mondo mod. What this is going to do is like make it auto pan left to right kind of slowly. So as you're hearing the dubs, it's giving this movement through like your headphones, your speakers. It's just constantly moving. I love using this plugin on dubs. So let me show you guys. And this is the settings that I'm using it on. And you'll hear that the voice is kind of going from left to right.
Explorer, sliding down the road.
And then last up is the HDLA settings. I did change. I have the wet dry turned up to 15 now, and the feedback turned up to 11. And that's it, guys. So now you have your verse lead and you have your dubs. Another cool thing that I did is I did this super verby delay. And this one is based off of my dubs plugin chain. However, I took the micro shift off, and I cranked this second reverb way up, and then this is what you get.
No more.
Boom. Sexy. And then when you hear that in the mix,
Like this, no more. Shift work wears me thin.
then my next biggest tip is going to be on this hook. Now, this one's based off of the same lead vocal as the verse. However, you'll see that I have all these other channels where I've panned different amounts, and I've adjusted the volumes. So this is the lead vocal for the hook.
But I keep on driving down this road.
Then I did 2 more takes of that in the same way, pan those left and right.
Life's been tangled, but I stay strong.
And then I did 4 more takes, singing it in almost like a different character, a different style of voice. Very low, a little more nasally. Just pan those to different amounts. You can see right here, around anywhere from 15 to like 40. And that's just going to give you this more like a chorus, group vocal, gang vocal kind of vibe.
But I keep on driving down this road.
Really make it seem like a big chorus, especially in comparison to where we're only working with 1 or 2 layers at a time on the verse. It still sounds good without those other 4 takes, but then when they're mixed in, you can see how it just makes a chorus sound so much bigger. And that's it. And then because, if you stayed this long, I promise I'm going to show you my trusted 3 plugin mastering chain. It is Vitamin Mastering 3 preset, my L3 Ultra, and then I have the L2 limiter as well. And let me just show you the difference. The guy, you don't have to overcomplicate your mastering chain. I've been using this on almost every song, more or less. Sometimes I tweak it, but this is a general chain for you guys to just get started. So let me show you what it's doing.
One in Miami, down Explorer. It rained a bit last night, so I've been sliding down the road. I ashed my cigarette and burned the carpet on my floor. I hide it from my family, but they smell it on my clothes.
So just those 3 simple plugins is going to get your mix, 1, louder, right? Because you don't want to upload your song and it sounds just super quiet. Instantly, people are going to think that your music's unprofessional. and in a way they're right? So you're using these to bring up your volume. Also, it is kind of like fattening up, widening up your mix. So feel free to play around with it, but that is literally the best starting point I could give you for mastering your song. And if you like how this vocal template is sounding, but you don't want to go through the time to make it all yourself, then you can check out the link to my website and you can just grab it there. And then you can just pull up the session and record. You don't have to do any mixing or mastering yourself. You just click record and your vocals are going to sound crispy. All you got to do is change the key on the auto-tune and you're ready to go. Now, if you've watched this whole video and you decided you didn't like country music, but you like other genres, check out one of these videos that is somewhere on the screen or on my channel, because I have a lot of other videos on mixing your vocals for different genres. I'll catch you next time.